Hey guys, so we're going to talk about the impact of the New Deal. This should be a short and sweet lecture, so it shouldn't take us too long at all. So let's talk about the positives and negatives of the New Deal and the long-term legacies that it's going to have. So, organized labor in the early 1930s, nation sliding back towards depression. Excuse me. And things for organized labor are not seeming so good. It's pretty much anyone's thankful to have a job, which means it's really darn tootin' hard to try to get more respect when anyone's just jumping at a job. So in 1933, the number of labor union members is around 3 million, and compared to the 5 million it was a decade before this. So it's not looking so good. Union membership is down. Most union members in 1933 are going to be skilled craftsmen, and they're still affiliated with the American Federation of Labor, the AFL, in some way. That's Samuel Gompers' side of things. The union movement is going to fail. I mean, it has been for the 50 years before this, because they aren't organizing in larger numbers in mass production with industries such as steel, textiles, mining, automobiles, things like that. But they are successful in organizing labor unions for crafts, and that's where you're going to start to see the growth of industry starting. 1933, you're going to see labor unions are going to be making more success, though. They are going to have big gains in the 1930s, mostly from the pro-union stance that Franklin Delano Roosevelt is going to have in his administration, and from the legislation that will then be enacted by Congress during the New Deal. The National Industry Recovery Act of 1933 is going to provide for collective bargaining. So 1935, then, the National Labor Relations Act, is also known as the Wagner Act, is going to require that businesses have to bargain in good faith with any union supported by the majority of their employees. You can't just write them off. You actually have to sit there and talk to them and try to figure out some sort of maybe compromise. Meanwhile, Congress and the industrial organizations are going to split with the AFL, and you're going to see that unskilled workers are going to become more aggressive in trying to get represented in labor unions. Strikes of various kinds are going to become an important tool for the Congress of Industrial Organizations in moving forward as a bargaining chip. Okay, so women in the New Deal. Women generally aren't going to be enhanced. Their welfare isn't going to be enhanced directly because of the New Deal, but you're going to see that 1930s women are relegated to being housewives and mothers. But those New Deal programs are going to allow them opportunities for employment. Women are going to be employed through the Work Progress Administration, the WPA. Even in its peak year, though, the WPA only hired about 13.5% of their total were women. So, they hired them, quote unquote. You are going to see that women are going to be serving in different professional projects like the Federal Emergency Relief Agency, FERA, and it's going to give library projects a high priority. This is going to send librarians into rural communities, and they're going to provide library services where none existed before, and they're also going to create work programs for unemployed actors, writers, musicians, and artists. And you're going to see women are also going to be involved in the National Youth Administration and YA. This is why the New Deal is called Alphabet Soup, because there's so many acronyms. They're going to provide opportunities for young girls. The NYA is going to offer educational opportunities, work training, financial aid for youth women between the ages 16 and 25. You're going to see some big female figures in politics at this time. We have Frances Perkins, who's going to be the first woman named to a cabinet post, which is a big darn tootin' deal. She's going to become Secretary of Labor. And then Eleanor Roosevelt, this lady right here, she's the first lady. She married Franklin Delano Roosevelt. And she is a really huge deal because she's going to raise the status of First Lady to actually, being a thing and actually being relevant, and raising kind of public conscience around it. And she's just, really into being a lady and fighting for that. Okay. African Americans under the New Deal. So Franklin Delano Roosevelt is extremely popular amongst African Americans. he didn't really do a whole ton to actually support them through the New Deal. The Civilian Conservation Corps, the CCC camps, are going to be segregated, just like everything else is in America at this point. The Social Security and Wagner Act, which I already talked about, excluded domestic and agricultural workers, which was mostly African Americans. There is going to be no anti-lynching laws put in place, so you're going to see that the murder of people is still going to be allowed. The Scottsboro case is going to reveal, which is a super interesting case, it's going to reveal how unfair the Southern justice system was African Americans. Pretty much in the Scottsboro case. So pretty much in the case, it is going to be a group of 9 African-American teenagers between the ages like 13 and 20. So I guess 20 doesn't technically make you a teenager, but regardless. And they are going to be riding the trains, like hoboing their way around. They start off like in Tennessee, I want to say. But where it happens is in Scottsboro, Alabama. There's going to be 2 white women on the train that are going to accuse the group of raping them, and that is going to set off a whole chain of events. They'll be arrested, they'll be taken to jail in the meantime, and a lynching mob comes for them. And this is actually where I think the scene in To Kill a Mockingbird where Atticus Finch watches over the jailhouse when Jim's in there. I think that comes from this moment, but I'm not really sure. A guy in town watches over the jail. He's like highly respected, and no one actually lynches the Scottsboro boys. It's a huge deal. So they're actually going to go to trial. But it's like a huge system of racism and like false accusations of rape and because of their ethnicity and just like a lot of different things all pulled together. That is just, anyways, it's going to show how unfair the justice system is in the South towards African Americans and just like how corrupt everything is. Now, to remember, things aren't like amazing in the North. Like, you know, we like to think like, oh yeah, but it wasn't like in the North. It just like it wasn't that much better. We just weren't having lynching mobs. Okay, and our Southern Democrats are going to control the states where most our African Americans are going to be living at this point in history. And yeah, okay, so then we have the Indian Reorganization Act. So John Collier is going to become the head of the Bureau of Indian Affairs, the BIA. And they're going to push through the Indian Reorganization Act of 1934, sometimes called the Indian New Deal. This is going to reverse the Dawes Act, woohoo! And it's going to give Indians freedom of religion, which that's exciting. It's going to give them more power to their tribal government, that their governments are going to be able to kind of control things more on their reservations. And that is going to give them a little bit more freedoms of what they want for their tribe. The government, like the federal government of the United States, is still going to financially control the reservations, so that's still a thing. You are going to see the government is going to promote reparations of Mexicans that had been in the Western Territory of the United States, not reparations, repartitions. Oh my God, I can't think and I can't read. This is being sick. So they were deporting Mexican Americans that were illegal citizens. This is the words I wanted. This is going to lead to the Mexican American movement that is going to organize with the help of the New Deal funds, and they're going to be fighting against racism of Mexican Americans. And they also kind of join in with Asian and Native Americans in order to fight down the economic downturn and the racism that they're facing. Okay, the Dust Bowl. So Dust Bowl is going to be happening in the Midwestern part of the United States. And it's going to be a severe drought. It is a combination of that severe drought and very just poor farming practices, ripping up all those plains grasslands in Oregon as well. And it takes place between 1930 and 1941. And it's just going to be these huge, disgusting black blizzards sorry, sound like someone was at my door. Black blizzards are going to happen through the Midwest, and it's going to cause people to get sick. It's going to make it impossible to farm there, and it's just really, really, really hard to continue living there. If you've ever read The Grapes of Wrath, that's what this is all about. You're going to see that some people are going to leave, or Okies as they're called, because they're leaving mostly Oklahoma. Poor old Oklahoma just can't catch a break. And they're going to be seeking areas in California, looking for migrant work in California, like picking fruit and stuff on farms. But you are going to see that some people are going to stay, and the people that stay are going to try to fix what happened. They're like, wow, there were some poor choices that were made before we got here. So we see things like the Soil Conservation Service. It's going to try to work with farmers to prevent future soil erosion by teaching how to plant crops properly and crop rotation, and like we should keep some stuff as grassland so we can keep some of the dirt in the ground and soil erosion and like all these different things. And we're going to try to prevent that from happening again, trying to have more responsible farming techniques. All right, the Tennessee Valley Authority, the TVA, it's going to start in 1933. It's going to integrate flood control, reforestation, electricity generation, and agriculture and industrial development. There are going to be dams. They're going to be put into different rivers in this area. And we're going to have what's called the Rural Electrification Administration, REA, and they're going to help bring electricity to the region with loans to farmers. That's a big deal. Then we have the legacies of the New Deal. The legacies are pretty much two-part. And the two parts of that are the New Deal Coalition and the welfare state. So the New Deal Coalition is going to be an alliance that's forged by the Democrats, who are going to dominate American politics from the 1930s well into the 1960s. There's going to be like some interludes of Republican political success, like Dwight D. Eisenhower, but basically Democrats are going to be running the government for the next 30 years because of Franklin Delano Roosevelt's like intense success. The Democratic Party are the liberals that we know the Democratic Party today. And they're going to be made up of the urban working class, ethnic groups generally, so like minorities, Catholics and Jews are going to be part of this as well because they did face discrimination on the other side. Poor people are going to be on the Democrat side. Southerners actually are going to be on this side, and that's surprising in 2020. African Americans are going to be on the side as well as intellectuals. So you kind of see like what we know as the modern day Democratic Party is going to be put into place, and the New Deal Coalition that is going to be really into controlling the government for quite a while. The welfare state. So you're going to see during the Great Depression, during the New Deal, the government is going to undertake responsibility for the welfare of its citizens through programs in public health, public housing, pensions, and unemployment compensation, and so much more. So these are things before that it was just sort of like, c'est la vie, like such is life, like it stinks to stink pretty much. Or it was private programs that were done that was like private charities and things like that were helping you out. So like if you were going to lose your house, you would turn to them, or just such is life, you lose your house and it is what it is. But the New Deal is going to change the mentality around that. And it's going to start different government programs in order to help out the citizens from losing their house or things like that. And this, welfare state is going to create deficit spending. So this is going to be a government that spends more than it takes in and goes into debt. And that is going to mean that we have national debt, which, that's not amazing to have debt. Debt is not awesome. And you're also going to see the establishment of different entitlement programs. Entitlement meaning the government kind of kickback you get from certain things, not like you're entitled to it because you're an entitled person. I feel like entitled is a word that gets thrown around a lot. Okay, so these programs, the entitlement programs, are going to be programs that are going to provide things like unemployment insurance. So like if you lose a job, and you have the ability to collect insurance for being unemployed for so long. It's usually 3 to 6 months. Disability relief, so if you get hurt on the job, like you can pay for that. and all these different things are available to eligible citizens, that if you are working capability, if something goes wrong, that you can be helped out. Okay, so now the analysis questions. They can stare into the sunset and think deeply about what they are. So support, modify, or refute, I said that backwards, the following statement. The New Deal was revolutionary because it created a much more powerful central government. Sorry, I'm trying to read from back here. Increased power to the executive branch and began the modern welfare state. So, like, do you think it did that? Do you think it increased the power of the presidency? And do you think it caused the welfare state to exist? Or do you think, like, maybe these are things that were already happening before the New Deal came into place? Or maybe you're like, nah, like, that might have happened after the New Deal for a little bit, but, like, not enough that it, like, lasted all the way to 2020. Like, what do you think, and why do you think what you do? Oh, I made a dot. Whoops. And the last one, do you think FDR was continuing the work and legacy of the progressives? Do you think he was trying to continue those pieces of trying to better society from industrialization for all citizens and trying to make things more democratic? Okay, so go ahead and answer these questions. If you have any questions in general, just come see me or sign up for Key Time or come in before after school or post it at Edmodo or email it to me or just ask it in class because someone else might have the same question as you. I hope you enjoyed this beautiful lecture.